The notification sound cut through the darkness of our loft at 2:47 a.m., and I knew my marriage was over before I even opened my eyes. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Lily stirred beside me, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone on the nightstand. In the blue glow of the screen, I watched my wife of 3 years read a message that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. The kind of smile that used to be mine alone, back when we first moved into this converted warehouse space in downtown Cleveland, back when she used to photograph me instead of mysterious clients who required late-night sessions. "Work emergency," she whispered, thinking I was still asleep. "Gotta go handle something at the studio." I kept my breath even, feigning stillness as she sifted through our dresser, collecting clothes. The floorboards creaked under her feet as she tiptoed around our exposed brick walls, past the industrial windows that overlooked the city's sleeping skyline. 3 years ago, this place had been our dream. Now it felt like a mausoleum for everything we'd built together. The front door clicked shut, and I was alone with the truth I'd been avoiding for weeks. My name is Kyle Morrison. I'm 29 years old, and I sell enterprise software solutions to mid-sized manufacturing companies. It's boring work that pays well, which is how I afforded half of this $1,500 a month loft, while my artistic wife pursued her passion projects between sporadic photography gigs. I grabbed my laptop and did what any suspicious husband in the digital age does. I checked our phone records online. Lily's number had been exchanging texts with someone labeled E since last Tuesday. 47 messages yesterday alone, mostly between midnight and 3 a.m. The same E who'd been calling her during my work hours, always when she thought I wouldn't notice. My hands shook as I scrolled through the data. 3 years of marriage, and it all came down to a phone bill that told the story she wouldn't. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected, but underneath the pain was something else, something cold and calculating that I didn't recognize in myself. I'd always been the understanding husband, the supportive partner who picked up the slack when Lily's art wasn't paying the bills. When she needed new camera equipment, I covered it. When she wanted to renovate the studio space she shared with her business partner Jess, I wrote the check. When her parents criticized her unstable career choices, I defended her at every family dinner, but understanding husbands finish last, apparently. The sun was rising over Lake Erie when Lily finally came home, her hair messy and her makeup smudged. She found me in the kitchen, making coffee with the expensive beans she'd insisted we needed. "You're up early," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, handing her a mug. "How was the emergency at the studio?" She took the coffee without meeting my gaze. "Just some lighting issues. Nothing major." I nodded, sipping my drink while studying her face. 3 years of marriage had taught me to read her tells, the way she touched her neck when she lied, how her voice got slightly higher when she was nervous. Right now, she was doing both. "That's good," I said. "I was worried when you got that text so late. Must be nice having clients who trust you enough to call at any hour." Her hand went to her neck. "Yeah, it's part of the business." I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in our industrial-style sink. "I've got that big presentation today with the Peterson manufacturing account. Might be home late." "Okay," she said, relief flooding her voice. "I'll probably be at the studio most of the day anyway. Jess and I have a lot of catching up to do." I kissed her forehead, tasting lies and someone else's cologne. "Have fun with Jess." The Peterson presentation went better than expected. I closed a $60,000 deal while my personal life crumbled in the background, which pretty much summed up my entire existence. My coworker Shannon Martinez, a sharp-tongued account manager who'd been trying to steal my clients for 2 years, actually congratulated me. "Didn't think you had it in you, Morrison," she said, leaning against my cubicle wall. You've seemed distracted lately. Just focused on the work, I replied, shutting down my laptop. Speaking of which, I need to head out early today. Shannon raised an eyebrow. Hot date with the wife? Something like that. Instead of going home, I drove to Lily's studio in the Arts District. She shared the space with Jess Hartwell, a gossipy photographer who specialized in wedding portraits and had never met a secret she couldn't spill after 2 drinks. The studio occupied the ground floor of a converted textile factory, all exposed pipes and polished concrete floors that looked great in Instagram photos but were hell on your feet after a full day. I parked across the street and waited. Through the large windows, I could see Lily moving around inside, but she wasn't alone. A tall guy with dark hair and expensive sneakers was helping her adjust lighting equipment. Even from a distance, I could see the familiar way they moved around each other, the casual touches that spoke of intimacy. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Working late again tonight, don't wait up." I took photos with my phone, making sure to capture timestamps and clear images of both faces. The guy looked familiar, but I couldn't place him until he turned toward the window. Ethan Walsh, Lily's ex-boyfriend from college, the failed musician who'd broken her heart 5 years ago by choosing his band over their relationship. She'd cried for weeks when he left for Los Angeles to make it big. Apparently, he was back. They worked for another hour, their body language becoming increasingly intimate. When Ethan's hands lingered on Lily's waist while positioning her for a test shot, I'd seen enough. I drove to the Copper Still, a dive bar 3 blocks from our loft where the bartender knew my usual order and didn't ask questions. My best friend Mark Torres found me there 2 hours later, nursing my 3rd whiskey and staring at the photos on my phone. "You look like someone killed your dog," Mark said, sliding onto the adjacent bar stool. "What's eating you?" Mark and I had been friends since high school. He worked construction, had opinions about everything, and possessed the kind of loyalty that was becoming extinct in the modern world. If anyone would understand what I was going through, it was him. I showed him the photos. "Shit," he said after scrolling through them. "That's the ex, right? The musician? Former musician, current homewrecker." Mark ordered a beer and studied my face. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. Part of me wants to confront them, but another part wants to be smart about this." "Smart how?" I finished my whiskey and felt the alcohol burn away some of the pain, leaving behind something harder and more focused. "Lily thinks she's being clever. She thinks I'm the same pushover who's been subsidizing her dreams while she figures out what she wants from life. Maybe it's time to show her what happens when the pushover pushes back." Mark grinned. "Now you're talking. What do you need?" "Information, and maybe some help with a few projects." "You got it, brother. But first, let's get you another drink. You're going to need it." We stayed until closing time, planning and drinking while the jukebox played songs about cheating hearts and broken dreams. By the time I stumbled home, I had a strategy. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't forgiving, but it was thorough. Lily was already asleep, or pretending to be. I slipped into bed beside her, smelling Ethan's cologne on her skin and feeling something die inside my chest. But passing, I was learning, could be liberating. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. I woke up before dawn with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. While Lily slept beside me, I made a list of everything we owned together and everything we owed. Joint checking account, $8,400. Joint savings, $12,000. My individual 401k, $47,000. Lily's individual savings, $340. The loft lease was in both our names, but I'd been paying 70% of the rent since Lily's photography business hit a rough patch last winter. Her car was financed through the credit union where I banked, with me as the primary applicant because her credit score was shot from some bad decisions in her early 20s. I spent my lunch break at the bank, speaking with Janet Kowalski, the loan officer who'd handled our accounts for 3 years. Janet was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who'd seen enough relationship drama to fill a library. I want to separate our joint accounts, I told her. Janet's expression didn't change. Both parties need to be present for that, or we need written consent from your wife. What if I just withdrew my contributions and opened a new individual account? That's within your rights, as long as you're not violating any court orders or legal agreements. I wasn't. Yet. There's something else, I said. The car loan for my wife's Honda. If she defaults on payments, what happens? Janet pulled up the account on her computer. You're the primary borrower, so you're responsible for the debt regardless. But we can repossess the vehicle if payments aren't made. And if I wanted to make a large payment against the principal? That would lower the monthly payments considerably. Why? I smiled, just planning ahead. That afternoon, I transferred $7,000 from our joint account into a new individual checking account. I left enough to cover the mortgage and utilities for 1 month, my half of the expenses. If Lily wanted to keep living in our dream loft, she'd need to start contributing her fair share. I also paid down her car loan to the point where the monthly payments dropped from $340 to $89. It seemed generous, but I had my reasons. My phone rang as I was leaving the bank. Lily's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice artificially bright. "I'm going to grab dinner with Jess tonight. Girl talk, you know?" "Sounds fun," I replied. "I'll probably work late anyway. The Henderson account is being difficult." "You work too hard," she said, and I could hear genuine affection in her voice. It made everything worse, somehow. "I love you." "Love you too," I lied. After hanging up, I drove to Jess's apartment complex. Her car was in its assigned spot, and the lights were on in her second-floor unit. I could see her silhouette moving around inside, clearly not at dinner with my wife. Instead of going home, I parked outside the Copper Still and waited. At 8:30 p.m., Lily's Honda pulled into the motel parking lot across the street. She got out and knocked on the door of room 237. Ethan answered, pulling her inside with an urgency that made my stomach clench. I took more photos, including clear shots of the license plates and the motel's illuminated sign with its timestamp. Then I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching the light in their window and planning my next moves. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Dinner's running long. Don't wait up." I texted back. "No problem. Sleep well." When I finally went home, I found a bottle of wine Lily had left on the kitchen counter with a note. "For my hard-working husband. Thank you for being so understanding. L." I poured the wine down the drain and threw the note in the trash. Understanding was a luxury I could no longer afford. The next morning brought an unexpected opportunity. Shannon Martinez cornered me by the coffee machine, her usual competitive smirk replaced by something that looked almost like concern. "You look terrible," she said. "And just so you know, that's not me being rude. That's me being perceptive." "Thanks for the pep talk," I replied, filling my mug with coffee that tasted like burnt disappointment. "I'm serious, Kyle. What's going on? You closed the Peterson deal like a machine yesterday, but you look like you haven't slept in a week." I studied Shannon's face. We'd been rivals since she joined the company 18 months ago, constantly competing for the same accounts and the same recognition. She was ambitious, ruthless, and exactly the kind of person who might be useful in a situation like mine. "Hypothetically," I said, "if you discovered someone was betraying you, what would you do?" Shannon's eyes lit up with interest. "Hypothetically? I'd gather evidence, identify their weaknesses, and then systematically destroy their ability to hurt me again." That seems harsh. Harsh is letting people walk all over you while you smile and say thank you. Harsh is being taken advantage of by someone who's supposed to have your back. She paused, studying my expression. "We're not talking hypothetically, are we?" I took a long sip of coffee. "What do you know about social media forensics?" Enough to ruin someone's reputation if they deserve it. Why? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mark's name appeared on the screen. "I've got news," he said when I answered. "Meet me at Murphy's Deli at noon, and bring your appetite for justice." Murphy's Deli was a Cleveland institution, the kind of place where construction workers and office drones shared tables and complained about the weather. Mark was waiting in a corner booth, a manila folder spread out in front of him. "Your boy Ethan has been busy," he said as I sat down. "Remember my cousin Danny who works at the impound lot? Turns out your wife's boyfriend has some interesting financial problems." He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a printout showing multiple unpaid parking tickets and 2 outstanding warrants for failure to appear in court. "He's been living in his car for the past 3 weeks," Mark continued. "Apparently his big comeback tour didn't work out so well. He owes money to half the music venues in town." "How did you find all this?" Mark grinned. "Danny's girlfriend works at the courthouse. She ran Ethan's name through the system as a favor. Guy's 1 missed payment away from having his car repossessed." I studied the paperwork, feeling pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. "What else?" "Well, here's where it gets interesting. Guess who co-signed for his car loan 3 months ago?" My blood ran cold. "Lily." "Bingo. Your loving wife is on the hook for a 2019 Camaro with 22,000 miles and 18 months of payments left. If Ethan defaults, they come after her credit." I leaned back in the booth processing this information. Lily had co-signed for her ex-boyfriend's car loan while married to me, probably using our joint financial information to qualify. It was a betrayal that went deeper than just the affair. "There's more," Mark said. "Danny also mentioned that Ethan's been bragging around town about landing a sugar mama who's going to help him get back on his feet. Apparently, he's been telling people he's got a plan to score big." My hands clenched into fists. "What kind of plan?" "The kind that involves a married woman with a stable income and a husband who works in tech sales?" Mark's expression darkened. "Kyle, I think they're planning to take you for everything you're worth." The deli suddenly felt too small, too warm. I needed air, but first I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. "I want you to keep digging," I told Mark. "Find out everything you can about Ethan's finances, his plans, his connections, and see if Danny can help us with something else." "What do you need?" I smiled, feeling that cold calculation spreading through my chest again. "I need to know exactly how much trouble a guy can get into for defaulting on multiple loans simultaneously." Mark's grin matched my own. "Now you're thinking like a winner." That evening, I decided to force the issue. Instead of pretending ignorance, I waited in our loft's living room with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. When Lily came home at 10 p.m., claiming she'd been working late at the studio, I was ready. "How was your day?" I asked, pouring wine into both glasses. She looked surprised but pleased. "It was good. Productive. Jess and I finished editing the Morrison wedding photos." She paused. "Wait, that's weird. Same last name as you." "Coincidences happen," I said, handing her a glass. "Tell me about this big project you've been working on, the one that's been keeping you out so late." Lily's hand went to her neck, her tell. "It's just a portrait series. Nothing too exciting." "With Jess?" "Yeah, with Jess." I nodded, taking a sip of wine. "That's funny, because I drove by Jess's apartment tonight around 8. Her car was there and I could see her watching TV through the window." The color drained from Lily's face. Maybe she went home early. Maybe. I set down my wine glass and pulled out my phone. Or maybe you've been lying to me for weeks. I showed her the photos from the motel parking lot, her Honda, Ethan opening the door to room 237, the timestamp showing 8:30 p.m. Lily stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Finally, she found her voice. "Kyle, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'm really curious about this explanation. I'm curious about how you can explain co-signing for your ex-boyfriend's car loan while married to me. I'm curious about how you can explain 47 text messages in one day. I'm curious about how you can explain using our joint financial information to help your lover get back on his feet. She set down her wine glass with shaking hands. How did you find out? Lily, I'm not stupid. I'm not the naive husband who's going to keep paying your bills while you figure out whether you want to be married or not. I stood up, towering over her. What I am is done. It's not what you think, she said, tears starting to form. Ethan and we're just what? Just sneaking around in budget motels while I put in 60-hour weeks to keep everything going? Just planning to take me for everything I'm worth so you can run off with a failed musician who can't even pay his parking tickets? Lily's tears stopped. Who told you that? Does it matter? What matters is that you made a choice. You chose to betray our marriage, our finances, and our future. So now I'm making a choice too. I walked to our bedroom and returned with a suitcase I'd packed that afternoon. I'm staying at Mark's place tonight. Tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about how this divorce is going to work. You can stay here for now, but you're going to start paying your fair share of the expenses. Kyle, please, she said, grabbing my arm. We can work this out. It was a mistake. I was confused. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. You know what confuses me, Lily? I've been supporting your dreams for 3 years. I've paid for your equipment, your studio space, your car, your health insurance. I've defended you to your parents, my parents, and anyone else who questioned whether you were serious about building a career. I gently removed her hand from my arm. And this is how you repay me, by sneaking around with your ex-boyfriend and planning to financially destroy the man who's been keeping you afloat. That's not true, she whispered. Isn't it? Then explain the co-signed loan. Explain why Ethan's been telling people he's found a sugar mama who's going to help him get back on his feet. Lily's face crumpled. He said you'd never understand. He said you were holding me back from my real potential. My real potential? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lily, I've been your biggest supporter since the day we met. The only person holding you back is you. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. Think about what you really want, because when I come back tomorrow, we're going to start dividing up our life, and I promise you, it's not going to be as generous as you're used to. The door closed behind me with a finality that echoed through the hallway. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, letting the reality of the situation sink in. My marriage was over, but my revenge was just beginning. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal consultations, financial maneuvering, and cold, calculated planning. I stayed at Mark's apartment while Lily remained in our loft, probably assuming I'd come crawling back like I always did when we fought. She was wrong. Shannon proved to be an invaluable ally. Her expertise in social media and her complete lack of sentimentality made her perfect for the more delicate aspects of my plan. We spent lunch breaks crafting a strategy that would systematically dismantle Lily's support network while protecting my own interests. The key, Shannon explained over coffee, is to let people discover the truth organically. If you just start telling everyone she's cheating, you look like the bitter ex-husband. But if the evidence speaks for itself, they draw their own conclusions, I finished. Exactly. And once people lose trust in someone, they rarely get it back. Meanwhile, Mark and his cousin Danny were handling the more practical elements. Ethan's financial house of cards was even more precarious than we'd initially discovered. In addition to the car loan and parking tickets, he owed back rent on 3 different apartments, had defaulted on a business loan for his failed recording studio, and was being sued by 2 former bandmates for breach of contract. Guy's a walking disaster, Danny reported during one of our meetings at the Copper Still. The only thing keeping him afloat is whatever money your wife's been giving him. That money, I'd discovered, was coming from a credit card Lily had opened without telling me. She'd been using our joint financial information to qualify for a $10,000 limit, then cash advancing money to support Ethan's lifestyle. It was fraud, technically, but proving it would require more legal drama than I wanted to deal with. Instead, I chose a more direct approach. On a Thursday evening, I returned to the loft while Lily was at her studio session. I'd been monitoring her location through the Find My Friends app we'd set up months ago for safety reasons. She was at the same motel, room 237, probably thinking she was being clever. I packed the rest of my belongings methodically, leaving behind anything we'd purchased together. I also left a few surprises, printed copies of all the evidence I'd gathered, organized in neat folders and labeled with dates and times. The motel photos, the financial records showing her secret credit card, the documentation of Ethan's outstanding debts and warrants. But the real surprise was in the kitchen. A formal notice that I was terminating our joint lease agreement. Per the terms of our rental contract, either party could end the lease with 60 days' notice and forfeiture of the security deposit. Lily would have 2 months to find a new place to live or convince the landlord to let her sign a new lease on her own. Given her credit score and employment history, I doubted Mrs. Kowalski would approve her as a solo tenant. I also left a letter. Lily, I've moved out permanently. The evidence in these folders explains why. You have 60 days to find alternative housing arrangements. I've canceled my contributions to all joint accounts effective immediately, so you'll need to cover the full rent and utilities if you want to stay. The Honda's loan has been restructured. The payments are now $89 per month instead of $340, which should help with your budget. However, you're still responsible for the full amount, and any defaults will affect your credit score. I've filed for divorce. My attorney will contact you next week to discuss asset division and debt responsibility. Given the circumstances, I don't expect this to be a complicated process. I hope Ethan is worth it. Kyle. I left the letter on the kitchen counter next to the folders and walked out of our dream loft for the last time. 2 hours later, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Lily. I ignored them all. The next morning, Shannon helped me execute the final phase of our plan. Using carefully crafted social media posts and strategic leaks to mutual friends, we ensured that everyone in Lily's professional and personal network would soon know about her affair and its consequences. The photography community in Cleveland was small and gossipy. Once word got out that Lily had been cheating on her supportive husband while secretly funding her ex-boyfriend's lifestyle, her reputation would be effectively destroyed. But the masterstroke came from an unexpected source: Jess, Lily's business partner and supposed best friend. She's been lying to me too, Jess confessed when she called me that Friday afternoon. I found out she's been using our studio space for her little affair, bringing him around after hours and making me cover for her with clients. I'm sorry she put you in that position, I said. I'm done covering for her, and I'm done being her business partner. Jess paused. Kyle, I want you to know that some of us saw what a good husband you were. Lily's an idiot for throwing that away. Thank you, Jess. That means a lot. There's something else. I'm keeping the studio space. The lease is in my name, and I'm not going to let her drag my business down with her personal drama. She's got until the end of the month to get her equipment out. After hanging up, I realized that Lily's entire life was systematically falling apart. Her marriage, her housing, her business partnership, her reputation, all the support systems she'd taken for granted were disappearing simultaneously. It should have felt more satisfying than it did. The confrontation I'd been expecting finally came on a Sunday afternoon 3 weeks later. I was at Mark's apartment, watching football and enjoying the first peaceful weekend I'd had in months, when Lily showed up at the door. Mark answered, took one look at her tear-stained face and desperate expression and called for me. She says she needs to talk to you, he said. I can tell her to leave if you want. I considered it, then shook my head. Let her in, but stay close. Lily looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. The confident, artistic woman I'd married had been replaced by someone who looked broken and desperate. Kyle, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, we need to talk. Talk, I said, not getting up from the couch. I made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems, start over. Start over? I laughed. Lily, you didn't just make a mistake. You systematically betrayed our marriage for months. You used our joint finances to support another man. You lied to my face every single day. I know, but there's no but. You made your decision the moment you started seeing Ethan. You made your choice when you co-signed for his car. You made your choice every time you looked me in the eye and lied about where you'd been. Tears streamed down her face. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. Well, now you do. You wanted Ethan. Congratulations, you can have him. He's gone, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Gone? He left town last week. Said the pressure was too much, that he couldn't handle the drama. He took the car and disappeared. I'm still responsible for the loan, but I can't even find him. I felt a moment of genuine surprise. I'd expected Ethan to stick around and try to milk the situation for as long as possible. Apparently, he was even more of a coward than I'd thought. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I almost meant it. Kyle, please. I've lost everything. My home, my business, my friends. I can't lose you too. You already lost me, Lily, the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. She collapsed into Mark's recliner, sobbing uncontrollably. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I stood up and walked over to her, feeling something that might have been pity. You can't fix this. Some things, once they're broken, can't be put back together. So that's it? 3 years of marriage and you're just going to throw it all away? I knelt down so we were at eye level. I didn't throw anything away, Lily, you did. Every time you chose him over me, every time you lied, every time you put our financial security at risk for someone who didn't give a damn about you. I know I hurt you, but you didn't just hurt me. You tried to destroy me. And when that didn't work, your boyfriend ran away and left you holding the bag. I stood back up. That's not love, Lily. That's not even basic human decency. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What am I supposed to do now? You're supposed to learn from this. You're supposed to figure out how to be a person who doesn't betray the people who care about her. You're supposed to grow up. I walked to the door and opened it. The divorce papers will be finalized next week. My attorney will send you the details. After that, I don't want to see you again. Lily stood up slowly, her legs shaky. Kyle, Goodbye, Lily. She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. I really did love you, you know. I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the woman I'd fallen in love with 4 years ago. The woman who'd laughed at my jokes and supported my dreams and made me believe in forever. No, I said finally. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference. The door closed behind her, and I knew I'd never see my wife again. Epilogue. 6 months later. I'm writing this from my new apartment downtown, a modern one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Lake Erie. It's smaller than the loft Lily and I shared, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every book belongs to me and me alone. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. Lily got to keep her photography equipment and her car loan. I kept everything else, including my dignity and my self-respect. Shannon and I have been dating for 2 months now. It started as a friendship built on mutual professional respect and evolved into something deeper. She understands ambition and doesn't apologize for wanting success. More importantly, she's never lied to me, not even about small things. Mark thinks I'm moving too fast, but Mark doesn't understand what it's like to have someone look you in the eye and tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. After months of lies and manipulation, honesty feels like a luxury. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Lily moved back in with her parents in Akron. She's working at a portrait studio in a mall, taking senior pictures and family photos for minimum wage plus commission. Ethan never came back, and she's still making payments on his car loan. I don't feel sorry for her. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I should have tried harder to save our marriage. But those people don't understand what betrayal really costs. It's not just the cheating, it's the lies, the manipulation, the systematic dismantling of trust that took years to build. Lily didn't just break our marriage vows. She tried to break me. Instead, she broke herself. And that, I've learned, is the most fitting revenge of all. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. When they choose to destroy something beautiful for something cheap and temporary, let them live with the consequences. I'm 30 years old now, and I'm finally learning to put myself first. It's a lesson I should have learned years ago, but some education is worth the price you pay for it. My name is Kyle Morrison. I sell enterprise software solutions, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.